Tonight on an all-new 2020.
How to Get Away with Murder.
Move over, Viola. There's a new teacher in town.
You want to learn how to clean up a crime scene? These are things they're learning.
But did his college class teach someone how to commit the perfect crime?
She hasn't been seen for more than a week now.
Hasn't heard from Lee Porter.
A young woman obsessed with snapping selfies, now nowhere to be found.
I don't want anybody to hurt her. I just want her to home safe.
Tonight, 2020, following all the clues to find her or her killer.
You wanted the body.
We need the body.
The three men in her final days interrogated. The ex-boyfriend, the guy who wanted to be her boyfriend.
In no way did I make any advances on her whatsoever.
And his roommate, what did he see in the dark of the night? But it's her grieving brother.
Please come home to us.
Who does what police cannot.
It doesn't make sense why she's gone. I don't get it.
Using a hidden iPhone to catch the killer.
You killed my sister. All this recorded. Call the cops.
Tonight, could it have been a script from a TV show?
We bury the evidence.
Those are things he could have learned right there in my class.
How to Get Away with Murder. Here's Jim Avila.
Young and pretty, lost and nowhere to be found. Lee Porter, a 19-year-old Colorado waif of a woman who simply vanished in June of 2014.
She was small, but she was feisty.
Police launch a massive search in the Denver suburbs.
They're still looking for Lee Porter.
Friends and family are desperately searching for Lee Porter.
And now, more than 2 years later, Lee still not found. Her mother, Renee Jackson, follows her own leads, tramping through the winding, dusty trails of central Colorado with search dogs, ignoring warnings, keep out, private road, it may be your last earthly move.
Okay, go find. Good boy.
Why come now? Obviously, the police aren't searching for her.
Because my mama heart I can't accept the fact that I don't know where my daughter is. I can't live with that.
Renee, Wendy Kessinger of Canine Forensics, and her dogs are searching here on Deer Mountain. It looks almost a little needle in a haystack. In Cotopaxi, Colorado, population 47. Its claim to fame, whitewater rafting through one of Colorado's deepest canyons, Royal Gorge.
Cotopaxi's really in the middle of nowhere. It's 3 hours from Denver. It's a mountain town. People live far away from each other. There's barely a stoplight, and the main hangout is a general store, which is also a gas station, and it's also the only restaurant in town.
It's also where the vivacious teenager grew up, a future as bright as her personality.
She was an amazing young woman, kind of a joker. She loved her brother like crazy. She was very social. She had lots of friends.
Among those friends, high school BF Mallory Nixon.
She was very outgoing, very bubbly. You know, she could have met someone 5 seconds ago and she'd already feel like their best friend.
At Cotopaxi High, Lee is an average student, more interested in the social scene than academics, hanging with the art crowd, deep into electronic music and concerts in faraway Denver. A small-town girl anxious to record her every move on her camera phone.
She was kind of a selfie hound, which I used to make fun of her. Like, get that phone out of your face. But I'm glad she took as many as she did, for sure.
Because now, it's all Mom has, memories. And as Lee moved away from the slow pace of Cotopaxi, the memories began to turn dark. A good girl, alone, now a 2-hour drive from family, quickly slipping into a world full of temptation and danger. Secretly dropping out of class here at Trinidad State College, and then moving in with an older man.
I don't understand it. I don't understand what made her go to this person who is much older and, you know, was kind of bad news, so.
He's 38. She's not out of her teens. Jessie Mine, a tattoo artist who Mallory Nixon says has a taste for tender young women and hard drugs. She wasn't involved in drugs at all before she met him?
Not before she met him, no.
And then how bad did it get?
It got bad right away. We were going to a concert together, and as we were driving up to Denver, she said, I did heroin for the first time, and I'm hooked on it.
What did that say to you?
It broke my heart. It really did.
While all this is happening, Lee's heart is broken too, by another man, a man she is closer to than any boyfriend, her older brother, Max.
She was basically like my best friend. We did everything together, listened to the same music, did the same things, fought like brother and sister all the time, and we were really close. We were able to go to each other and talk to each other about everything.
But when Lee needed her brother most, just as she's meeting the older man, Max, not expecting the downward spiral to come, moves to California to open his own business.
She got really depressed, and then she met Jesse.
He's a 38-year-old guy.
So she was attracted to this older man?
Yes, but he lied about his age at first, and then later, after they clicked, then told her.
Was there a certain vulnerability about your sister that perhaps allowed this to happen?
She lets people in really easily, so if you show any affection or care, she'll most likely open her arms up to you.
Lee Porter knew her life had taken a turn for the worse, desperately looking for a course correction. Her friend Mallory says in the days before Lee went missing, she was struggling to kick a heroin habit, attending Narcotics Anonymous.
She said she wants help, but she doesn't know what to do. She doesn't know who to go to because she didn't want to leave Jesse.
Was she getting out of it, do you think?
Oh, she definitely was. The day before she went missing, I saw her down in Pueblo, and she had been off of it for 3 days.
The trouble in Lee's life is about to get worse. Jesse breaks up with her, packs his truck, and moves east, leaving Lee with no place to live. She packs her car and heads north to Denver with no real plans. So Lee starts looking for help on social media, telling a Facebook friend, I'm about to be homeless. And then, as her brother finds out, she just drops off the grid.
I knew there was something wrong right away because I couldn't get a hold of her. It was just days of calling back and calling. Called my mom, told her there's something wrong.
The family goes to police, who immediately turned to boyfriend Jesse. His trip to the East Coast cut short by a summons to the interrogation room.
Can you tell me what your relationship is with Thea?
For 90 minutes, police hammer Jesse, and he admits to some rough times.
It's like the biggest fight we ever had.
When you guys arguing, or you guys
scream? No, not hitting each other, just screaming at each other. We would fight about cheating on each other.
Coming up, is this one of the other men in Lee's life? This is the last time she was seen having lunch. But who's that picking up the tab? And what did he learn in a criminology course like this one?
This is Criminal Law 100, or as I prefer to call it, How to Get Away with Murder.
Hello, I'm Elizabeth Vargas.
And I'm David Mueller. Right here tonight, those techniques in the fictional Professor Keating's law class, and this question, will a real student actually use one of those same strategies to try to get away with murder?
We are live tweeting during tonight's program, so follow our investigation on Facebook and on Twitter. And when we come back, Criminology Tip 101, whose name keeps popping up on the phone bill?
"2020 continues with more of How to Get Away with Murder.
The matching piercings, body art, and heroin, not enough to keep teenager Lee Porter's passionate 6-month relationship with Jessie Mai, nearly twice her age, alive.
And I fell in love with her, man. Fell for her hard.
Police have some tough questions for Jesse, who tells them in the interrogation room that despite the breakup, he still had plans to marry Lee in the future.
I told her when I left that if she got help, if she got clean, then I would love to come back and marry her.
Jesse tells the cops he last saw Lee when they parted ways at this motel parking lot just outside Denver. He describes a dark scene, saying Lee was distraught and maybe thinking of taking her own life.
She begged me not to leave. She talked about killing herself. She didn't have anything left to live for.
He says he was heading to his parents in Maryland to get off drugs. She was off to Denver to crash at a friend's house. But right after they separate, Jesse says something weird and completely out of character happens. Lee, the girl who is always on her phone, suddenly stops texting him.
So that first night, I was worried, but not too super worried, thinking maybe she's just mad at me. And then the following day, when Max called me and said, "Yo, dude, where's my sister?" That's when I was like, something bad is happening.
Bad because Jesse says Lee always takes Max's calls, no matter what.
She would stop during sex to answer a phone call from her brother.
Is that right?
It was like that. It caused fights a few times.
So they would communicate how often?
Every day.
Jesse appears cooperative in the interrogation, but admits Lee's family has their doubts about him.
Max had convinced them all that I was not to be trusted. I was the devil.
Back home in Cotopaxi, her mother, Renee, is running down another lead. It's a mom on a mission. Since Renee pays Lee's phone bill, she examines her daughter's call log and begins phoning every number on the list.
This one number kept popping up over and over, and it was Christopher Wade, and I had never heard that name before.
Christopher Wade, a tall and slender 23-year-old. He too is from Cotopaxi and went to high school with Lee, where he was a top student, but was often bullied and teased. He joined the military in an effort to toughen up. Now Wade is taking jiu-jitsu for self-defense. But talking to Christopher Wade only brings heartbreak for Renee when she learns he's been Lee's self-appointed accountability partner, a kind of sponsor to help her stay off drugs.
That was the first time I heard that she had been on the drugs, was from Christopher.
It seems Lee might finally have found a safe place. Christopher tells Renee Lee was with him at his apartment the night she disappeared, but that she left abruptly without explanation.
He told me that she had gotten a notification on her phone late that night and left.
Christopher Wade says he hasn't seen her since, but this is another man the cops need to talk to, paying him an immediate visit. Westminster Police Detective Matt Calhoun is in charge of the case.
What does he tell you? They had been conversing back and forth, and he had offered to let her stay at his apartment for a couple days to try and get her feet under her. Just concerned that Lee was suicidal.
Did he seem like he was anxious to help, or?
Yeah, he really was. He really wanted to help find Lee, and he's really concerned about her, and he wanted to do anything he can to help us.
Just like Lee's boyfriend Jesse, Chris Wade is extremely helpful, full of detail and concern. After interviewing these guys, police aren't yet convinced Lee is a victim. It's possible she's just a runaway.
We don't know what happened up to this point, and we can't prove that even a crime happened to that point.
Wade even joins the search, pleading for her safe return online and on the local news.
Tried texting her, tried calling her, left her some messages on Facebook, and haven't heard anything back from her.
Lee's family is busy too, plastering missing posters all over the Centennial State. Now desperate, they turn to the public to plead for Lee's return.
I don't want anybody to hurt her. I just want her to home safe. She's just a little tiny little thing.
If she's out there somewhere, to please come home to us. We need her. Everybody needs her.
Lee's brother Max is back from California and starting to stew, feeling like the authorities aren't keeping him in the loop.
They wouldn't tell us anything throughout this whole thing. They were really vague.
No sign of Lee and no leads, until lo and behold, Lee is spotted at a Boston market in line for some chicken. She's in shorts and flip-flops, seemingly unharmed or distressed, but with a mystery man buying her lunch. Coming up, yet another man is under suspicion, a roommate in that apartment where Lee was the night she disappeared. That makes 3. And the impatient brother Max is laying a trap for one of them.
When did you guys decide you were going to have to do some of this on your own as a family?
We just did.
A confrontation with a killer.
You tell me right now what happened to my sister.
Next.
Right now, Westminster Police hoping you can help find this missing 19-year-old.
Missing nearly a week.
She hasn't been seen for
Her
more
family
than a week.
hasn't heard from Lee Porter since Thursday.
7 long days since anyone has heard from Lee Porter. Last known whereabouts, this apartment complex, rented by an old high school classmate and Facebook friend, former military helicopter mechanic, 23-year-old Christopher Wade.
Porter and Wade went to the same high school. Porter went to visit Wade at his Westminster apartment and then was never seen again.
He seems touched about her disappearance on TV.
I don't really have very many friends. Friends I do have, I'm very loyal to. So even losing one is a heavy blow for me.
With Christopher's permission, police search his tiny 2-bedroom apartment where he lives with another Army vet, but it's less bachelor pad and more like female repellent. In the living room, video games and soda bottles scattered across the carpet.
It's just filthy. There's 2-liter jugs of chew spit, clothes all over the floor, and dishes all over the floor.
The kitchen, dried up food, half-eaten takeout, and not a sponge or soap in sight.
It was hard to be in that apartment. It smelled pretty bad.
But worst of all, Christopher's bedroom, a chaos of clutter. Clothes, coupons, computers, and camouflage cover the floor.
It was just in disarray. Twin mattress on the floor with no sheets and then no pillowcase.
But amid all the disorder, a key discovery. Glistening through the messy melange, a blade. Now the cops are more than curious, and Christopher has some explaining to do.
You can see the little bleach spots on it. It was alongside his bed. He claimed that he cut his hand about a week and a half earlier, and he explained that's why he bleached his knife. So that's when we actually asked him to come in for a formal interview at the police department.
Here at headquarters, Detective Calhoun calls for backup, bringing in the grizzled veteran homicide investigator Mike Lynch to get first crack at the would-be cop with a stinky apartment and a story that's beginning to smell just as bad. We move to interrogation room number 2.
This is the interrogation room where you got to speak to Christopher Wade.
We always put the subject that we're talking to on this side of the table, and then there's 2 cameras, one there and one there.
We're forcing you to talk to us. You are going to be free to leave when we're done here.
All right. He was a person of interest and possibly being considered only because he was the last person that had been with her.
Christopher describes his background in detail. He was raised in a deeply religious household, but he has a pagan obsession, proudly showing police the tarot cards he carries around, even bragging that he did a very revealing reading for Lee.
The first thing that popped out to me was the combination of the High Priestess and the Ace of Wands. Usually the 2 of those together will indicate either pregnancy.
So you actually asked her about being pregnant?
She told me that she had missed her period.
The conversation then turns to what exactly was the relationship between the 2 of them. Christopher insists it was totally platonic. He was her sponsor, he says, nothing more.
I liked her, and don't get me wrong, she is a beautiful young woman, but in no way did I make any advances on her whatsoever.
Even in the interrogation room, Wade is still helpful. He volunteers information, even points to this Facebook message she sent him.
She had just gotten out of a bad relationship, and she wasn't looking for a relationship or anything like that. And I told her straight up, that's fine by me. You'll be the one making the advances, not me.
And sure enough, according to Christopher, at his apartment that night, the pretty 19-year-old went after the 23-year-old geek.
We were just getting ready to get back into the video game, then she leaned in and kissed me. And I kissed back.
What did you think of that?
A little unusual and a little odd because Mr. Wade was a little bit of an unusual person himself. And it kind of caught us by surprise that she would want to have sex with him.
Unsure of what to make of the story, Detective Lynch begins to question Christopher about something conspicuously absent from his apartment: the sheets on his bed.
You didn't get rid of the sheets?
No.
Intentionally get rid of the sheets because maybe it had her blood on them?
No, sir.
It seems inconsistent, based on the condition of your apartment, that you would be all of a sudden in the middle of a sexual experience taking your sheets and taking them off the bed.
It was afterwards.
Even afterwards.
Yeah,
it just seems kind of bizarre.
The worst thing you could do is lie to us.
All right. Yeah, I did get rid of them.
Christopher cracks like a 3-minute egg, backpedaling under pressure. He tells his interrogators when Lee's mom called him that first night saying she's missing, he panicked and trashed the sheets that had both their DNA on them. But Detective Lynch is beginning to think there was more than sex going on in that bedroom.
We started turning the heat up, and I asked him, where's the body at? I says, is that body out there with the cell phone? Did you kill Leah Porter?
Am I being accused of something?
What do you think?
It sounds to me like yes. And I maintain my innocence, but I would like a lawyer.
Our interview now has to cease. I'm convinced he killed her. We have to let him walk out of here because we don't have the evidence to hold him in.
Christopher is free, but don't forget he shares that apartment with a roommate who was home much of that night.
What's your name?
Jesse Williams.
Jesse Williams.
We suspect something's happened to this young lady. Now, before you say anything to me, I want you to think long and hard about this.
Williams is in the hot seat for 3 hours. He tells authorities when he came home, Christopher had a tie around his bedroom doorknob. That's code for a girl in his room.
Did you ever hear anything?
I heard the door open and close, that's about it. Like they would want to use the bathroom or something.
So at any time did you ever see this woman?
No, I did not.
But he did see something curious while trying to sleep on the living room couch, such as it is. Around 3 in the morning, he watches as Christopher takes something outside.
I'm just transferring stuff that was in my old car to the new car. That's all he said. He went back to his room, and I've assumed he went to sleep.
Coming up, while the police are interviewing the roommate, Lee's brother is about to do some interrogating of his own. An unimaginable face-to-face, all caught on tape.
I'm just gonna let you walk away and drive away? No, give me away. Give me away for...
It was an amazing scenario that I've never seen in 25 years of being a prosecutor, where a family member confronts a suspect.
Stay with us.
I maintain my innocence, but I would like a lawyer.
23-year-old Christopher Wade, with his button-down shirt and goatee, looks like a geeky college student, not the prime suspect in the disappearance of a teenager.
And so we have Chris under 24-hour surveillance.
The detectives conclude that Jesse the boyfriend and Jesse the roommate are witnesses and not suspects. They let them go. And they get a search warrant for Christopher's apartment.
Our criminalist was able to do examinations for blood on like the bathroom. She sprayed the sinks and then the shower. And we were able to actually see a t-shirt had a blood stain on the upper sleeve.
And then police hit pay dirt when they find buried in the mess on the floor this receipt from 7-Eleven. It's for bleach and rubber gloves. Thank heaven for 7-Eleven. Stocked, as they all are, with Slim Jims, Slurpees, and security cameras.
Here you'll just see Chris Wade coming from his apartment by the bleach and gloves. Looks like it's about 11:54 in the morning.
Watch as inside the store, he's no housekeeper, but grabs the bleach. Then after speaking with the clerk, rubber gloves, before heading back to his mess of an apartment. The evidence is mounting. Police match Christopher's picture with the man in the Boston Market video. Now police are watching his every move, and they see Christopher meet with someone new.
He was still under surveillance, so we had detectives watching him and watching this whole thing go down.
It's Lee's brother, Max, unable to wait for police to go through the legal process. He's setting a trap of his own, luring Christopher to this idyllic setting under a gazebo of all things, with friendly text messages like these.
I don't think you did anything, but other people do. Hope you're holding up with work and all, friend. I'll let people know to stop harassing you.
And were you acting sympathetic at that point?
Yeah, totally. Like, I totally just told him what he wanted to hear.
But it's all a ruse to bait Christopher into talking. Max brings along a friend, and Christopher brings his obsession, those tarot cards. He says he wants to do a reading to help find Lee. Max and his buddy Eric Fay show me the gazebo where they all sat and talked.
Where is he sitting, and where are you guys sitting?
Yeah, Chris was sitting about right here, and we were all sitting on this side.
Max is getting impatient while Chris rambles on about those cards.
Again, I'm seeing no intention of physical harm towards Lee in this.
And then, in a genius move, Max secretly records the conversation on his phone. 2020 has obtained the actual audio.
Chris, look at me right in my eyes. Dude, where is she?
I do not know.
And then it went back and forth like 10, 20 times. I know, no, you, no, I don't. You know, no, I don't.
Where is she
now? I do not know.
You know what happened.
Look, okay.
You need to tell us right now, dude. I need my sister back, dude. I'm gonna kill myself without my sister. Chris.
Yeah, I know.
Where is she?
And eventually he cracked.
Look, you have every right to be angry with me.
You know if she's alive or if she's dead. You know.
I do.
Christopher, for the first time, admits right here, far from the windowless interrogation room, under the lattice of a gazebo in front of Lee's brother, that he killed the teenager in trouble, claiming he did it in defense, self-defense.
They went out to eat, she came back, they had sex, then she wanted drugs, so she took his knife and tried to stab him for drug money.
Here are Christopher's own words.
I turned, grabbed her, then stepped forward and twisted her around so that her body was in between me and the knife. Then I placed my hand at her throat. I didn't start squeezing until after she kept going. I told her,
How
"Drop the
long
knife,
did you
please."
squeeze her throat? Until what happened?
I thought that her muscles would relax when she went unconscious, and that I could gradually move the knife away and let her go and let her regain consciousness, but that didn't happen.
What are you thinking as this is going on?
I flipped out, I freaked out.
She wouldn't try to stab you, dude. She would never try to do that. Lying sack.
I know you won't believe me, but I will be turning myself in to the police. I will tell them.
No, you're going to jail right now. You're going to prison right now. Where do you think you're going, man?
Christopher is not going far, unless he has a paddle. The gazebo is surrounded by water. He wants to leave and turn himself into the cops the next day. Max, just hearing a horrific first-hand account of his sister's murder, would have none of that.
You think I'm just going to let you walk away and drive away? You killed my sister. No, let me quit. You need to wait for...
That last sound you heard? That was Max pouncing on Wade and delivering a little brotherly love in the form of a fistful of personal punishment.
And I made sure that Max got at least one good shot in on his face before I grabbed him and pulled him off. I wanted to jump over this bench and go at him myself, definitely. But I wanted him to rot more than that.
You wanted him in prison?
I want him to suffer in there.
An amazing scenario that I've never seen in 25 years of being a prosecutor, where a family member confronts a suspect and essentially gets a confession out of the suspect.
That's just the beginning. When Max and Eric call 911, they make him repeat the story on tape for a second time, the killer doing the talking. This is something you don't hear every day.
911.
Yes, I'd like to confess to a murder.
Okay. What happened?
The case is for the disappearance of Lee Porter.
But surprise, there's no need to summon the authorities. They've been watching the whole time. Detective Matt Calhoun is back at headquarters.
And we hear from the surveillance units that Max had just punched Chris in the face.
As the cops come out of the bushes, Max is still making calls, this time to his mother.
He was hysterical, and he told me that Lee was dead. And that Christopher admitted to killing her. I actually almost wrecked on the freeway.
This is her 911 call, a mother in hysterics.
Westminster 911, where's your emergency? Oh my God! Ma'am, can you take a deep breath? What's your name? Oh my baby, my little baby! Christopher Wade! Just admitted he killed her!
Did you think at all how amazing it was that your son and other friends were able to get him to say he did it?
They cracked the case. They did.
Coming up, it's still a case without a corpse.
Step 3, we bury the evidence.
Did this real-life professor teach Chris Wade just that?
His efforts to clean and purge the crime scene, those are things he could have learned right there in my class.
How Wade may still get away with murder. Next.
Doubt. That's how you get away with murder.
Every week, Viola Davis teaches the secrets of crime on how to get away with murder. While in suburban Denver, this real professor hits the chalkboard teaching criminology to would-be police.
We teach everything from interview interrogation, report writing, crime scene management, forensics, you name it.
So how does that help if someone doesn't want to do good, but they want to do bad?
If you want to learn how to clean up a crime scene, some of the challenges police have in making sure that all the evidence is acquired, these are things they're learning.
And guess who was in the front row, acing the class? Christopher Wade.
He had some amazing analytical skills and was sharp as a tack.
Book smart, but oddly unable to connect, especially, Wells says, with half the population.
He was challenged when it came to even speaking and finishing a sentence with a young lady.
Still, Wells says he was a gifted but awkward student, top of the criminal justice class honor roll at Little Everest College, dreaming of solving tough cases like the one he is headlining now.
Police arrested their neighbor, Christopher Wade, for the murder of Lee Porter.
Back in the interrogation room, a quick frisk and a jab from the real cops about Wade's lifelong dream to be on the other side of the law.
I miss it, did I? You tell me, right?
You didn't miss anything.
Sitting down with his lawyer and the cops he wanted to be like, Wade tells them his story of a struggle.
I asked her to stop struggling.
A knife and Lee's death.
I was the only witness, as well as the person that not murdered her, but was responsible for her death.
But what he did afterwards convinces police this was no accident. Wade didn't call 911. Instead, he took steps to hide Lee and the crime that caused her death.
I reclothed her, and I placed her on the bed, and then I took a duffel bag from my closet.
Wade forced the 98-pound Lee into the duffel, covered her with trash bags, her legs dangling as he disrespected her for a final time.
I took her out to the dumpster and I put her inside it.
Leaving little doubt in the 2-hour confession, his third in one day, police lock him up.
You are going to be taken into custody.
I understand.
And then they move to the search for Lee's body, critical under Colorado law for a first-degree murder charge. District Attorney Dave Young.
Without the body, we can't put together what happened in that apartment.
Police are sent out to track the only clue they have. Wade says he put her in a dumpster next to his apartment. Lee's mother took us to it.
He says he put her body in this dumpster right here.
This awful blue dumpster has become the emotional center of the case for Mother Renee.
I do have a pull to this place whenever we've conducted searches in this area. I have to come here first because this was the last place my daughter was.
Detectives track the trash, find the huge landfill near the Denver airport, very close to the location where Lee's phone last pinged.
40 days of searching, 40 days of hope, 40 days of going, every day hoping that you're going to find a bag with a body. It's pretty depressing.
We don't have the body, so maybe we missed it.
You wanted the body.
Absolutely. We need the body.
The 40-day search was not a total bust. Evidence, strong evidence, was found 3 weeks in.
Day 19 of this search was probably the most important day. One of our officers ends up finding a single purple pillowcase.
Inside, Lee's cell phone, now smashed by the compactors at the dump, her wallet and ID, and the clothes she was wearing. Evidence now with Renee Jackson. She had it all dry cleaned and put in a box.
This is her bag. This was actually one of the things I bought her for her last Christmas.
This must be difficult.
It's very difficult. It's very difficult. It's the last thing that I have of my daughter right now until I find her.
Frustrated and not anxious to take the case to the jury without Lee's body, the prosecution tries a long shot, offering Wade a plea deal. Second-degree murder in return for that critical piece of information. where is Lee's body?
I called the defense attorney at least 2 or 3 different times saying, I want to know where that body is. If he didn't put the body in the dumpster, we need to know now.
But after the paperwork is signed, Wade simply repeats what he said during interrogation, leaving tough questions for the prosecutor.
Why is the deal still good? Why not throw the deal out the window and say, we didn't get the body?
We could not go to a judge and say, we can prove that this man's lying to us. We want you to reject this plea bargain. There's no way we can prove that.
It's a deal Renee Jackson never liked. She rejects that this could have been an accident and thinks Wade had been fantasizing about raping and killing a young woman for years.
I always keep these are the original charges. To me, those were still the charges. She has been discarded somewhere, and I feel that way because I know his history.
A history confirmed in the police reports. Listen to what Wade's own mother told police during their investigation. She actually admits Wade told her he had planned a murder before.
She said that he went out one night to some girl's trailer with the intention of kidnapping her.
Wade's military records indicate it's fantasies like this that got him discharged from the Army.
They thought that he was going to go cause the death of a girl.
So people knew in advance and didn't
Yeah,
act.
I mean, they just dropped the ball all over the place. And then my daughter was his victim.
When we come back, a field trip. Destination Sterling Correctional Center in Northeast Colorado. Chris Wade's had about a year now to think about the story that got him locked up in prison for 48 years. And you'll hear him in his first interview since he became a suspect. What he told us the tarot cards told him to do. Next. Freshly barbered and shaved, prisoner number 170598, Christopher Wade. Sentenced to 5 decades in state prison, release date 2062. Time served here, 11 months. He's at the Sterling Correctional Facility. It's a serious prison. It's so secure that we can't even bring our camera in. But we can bring a tape recorder, and you'll get to hear his story. We are granted 3 hours with Wade, who has grown his hair and beard while in custody. He got right to the point.
It was June 2nd of 2014.
Over and over, Wade stuck to his story that the 98-pound Lee attacked him with a knife he kept by the bed.
You could easily either take the knife away from her, throw her to the bed and run, do anything short of killing her.
And I will admit that that is what I should have done.
Wade agrees his story may not make sense and admits to one glaring inconsistency. Remember the 911 call from the park where he confesses for the second time? He does not call it an accident then.
911.
Yes, I'd like to confess to a murder.
You knew the difference between saying I killed her and I murdered her.
Yes.
Your first words in 911 are, I've murdered somebody.
Yeah.
Wade says he didn't want to inflame Lee's brother, who had just punched him, by calling her death accidental. But why did he confess at all? Wade says it was all in the tarot cards.
The cards were saying to me that my guilt